Our thousands of years history is made up of marvelous stories about the development of the Vietnamese nation in the long course of struggle for survival. These heroic pages have cultivated in the mind of generations of Vietnamese people the perception of Biển, East Sea, as our living and cultural space, especially with regard to Hoàng Sa, Paracels, and Trường Sa separately, as part and parcel of our country. Vietnamese seas and islands, their long-standing roots, features genuine and objective evidence of how the Vietnamese feudal dynasties Vietnam established and exercised their sovereignty over the sea areas and islands in Biển, East Sea, which are traced back not only within Vietnam, but in the documents of many countries around the world. And from that, we can affirm that Vietnam has been the true master of the concerned sea areas and islands for thousands of years. All to be done is for a peaceful and sustainable Biển, East Sea in the process of harmonious integration with regional and global development. Vietnamese seas and islands, their long-established roots. In the mid-19th century, economic boom and the rise of colonialism prompted Western capitalist countries to wage colonial wars. Among a number of Asian, African, and Latin American countries, Vietnam became a direct victim of such wars. Taking advantage of the decline of the feudal regime in Vietnam, very early on the 1st September 1858, the French and Spanish allied troops fired their first cannon onto the Sơn Trà Peninsula of Da Nang to kick off their invasion of Vietnam. This also marked the beginning of over 80 years of French colonial domination in Vietnam. From that milestone, the French colonists gradually expanded their occupation and forced the Hague Court into signing the treaties under which Vietnam has to cede many lands to them. On 6th of June 1884, the Nguyen dynasty was finally forced to sign the Treaty of Huế, or Protectorate Treaty, or the Panetnote Treaty with France. Under the treaty, Vietnam was divided into 3 parts. Cochin China became a French colony. Tonkin was controlled by the Nguyen dynasty but put under the French protectorate, and An Nam remained under the absolute control of the Nguyen dynasty. But later, the Nguyen dynasty became helpless to see the French rapidly occupying more areas under their control towards establishing a protectorate over the entire territory of Vietnam. With the Treaty of Huế, the French protectorate government represented the An Nam, Vietnam, in its external relations and in protecting its sovereignty, including the exercise of sovereignty over Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa. Three years after the signing of the Treaty of Huế, on 26 June 1887, to put an end to all the conflicts in the border area with the Chinese Qing army, the French colonists, as representatives of An Nam at that time, concluded with the Qing court the Convention relative à la délimitation de la Chine et la frontière entre le Tonkin, Convention concerning the delimitation of the borders between China and Tonkin, or commonly referred to as the French-Qing Treaty or Constance Treaty of 1887. This treaty was to redivide the borders between Tonkin and China. This treaty mentioned nothing of the water bodies outside the Gulf of Tonkin or of the islands in the central and the south of An Nam. Hence, later, when Chinese scholars cited the 1887 French-Qing Treaty to claim Chinese sovereignty over Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa, they based themselves on absolutely no legal and practical grounds. Facing the fact that in the early 20th century, China, from the Qing dynasty to the Republic of China, always had its eyes on Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa, the French protectorate government had maintained many activities on behalf of the An Nam state to exercise its sovereignty over the 2 archipelagos. On 8 March 1921, the Governor-General of Indochina officially claimed Huangsha and Tuansha were under the jurisdiction of Annam under France. The Nguyen Court issued administrative documents related to the exercise of sovereignty over Huangsha. The royal official document dated December 15, 13th year of King Baodai's reign, February the 3rd, 1939, submitted by the royal office to King Baodai himself, was attached with a copy of the letter written in French by French resident superior in the central region Maurice Fanon Raphael to Pham Quân, chief of the royal office of the Nguyen dynasty, with the signature of certification by the vice chief of the royal office, Trần Đình Tùng. The two documents refer to the same matter. On 2nd February 1939, French resident superior in the central region, Maurice Fanon Raphael, sent a letter to Pham Quân, chief of the royal office of the Nguyen dynasty, asking the latter's office to request King Baodai to bestow posthumously Longton Medal on Louis Fontaine, who had just died in Hue on 2nd February 1939 of a dangerous fever contracted when he was on duty as first-rank chief of the team of province troops on Huangsha, on his merits in defending this archipelago. Baodai wrote approved, and initialed two letters B.D. Baodai with red pencil on the left margin of the paper to ratify Pham Quin's proposal. The royal official document dated December 27th in the 13th year of King Baodai's reign, 15 February 1939, submitted by the royal office to King Baodai, reads that French resident superior in the central region, Maurice Fanon Raphael, sent a letter to the royal office on the 10th February 1939, asking this office to request King Baodai first-class Longton Medal on the original troops on the central region for their many merits in quelling the revolt in the Central Highlands and for establishing a defense stronghold in Huangsha. Upon getting the letter, Chief of the Royal Office wrote an official letter to King Baodai to request his consideration. The Emperor wrote approved and initialed two letters, B.D. Baodai, with red pencil on the left margin of the document. These documents show that even in the context of foreign invasion, the Nguyen dynasty kept exercising and protecting their sovereignty over Huangsha and the islands and waters of Vietnam in their best possible way. The Nguyen court also closely cooperated with the French in managing Huangsha. On 30th March 1938, King Baodai signed Edict No. 10 to separate Huangsha from Nam Ngai province and to merge it into Thừa Thiên. And administratively, these islands are put under the chief of that province. The Nguyen court also sent a group of Vietnamese soldiers to Huangsha who would collaborate with the French troops to manage these islands. Since 1925, France started to launch expeditions by ship to Huangsha for oceanographic surveys. First, it sent an expedition of Nha Trang Institute of Oceanography scientists led by D.A. Krant, director of the Indochina Department of Marine Research and Fisheries, on the department ship de l'Anassant. It was also this ship that took French scientists for the survey of Tuansha in 1927 and for the second survey of Huangsha in June 1931. Other ships included La Malicieuse, sailing to Huangsha in 1930, and in Constant to Huangsha in March 1931, etc. Such activities demonstrated that the French regarded Huangsha the territory under their jurisdiction, and so they took the initiative in dispatching expeditions there for exploration and research purposes. In 1938, the French government in Indochina set up a lighthouse, a weather station, and a TSF radio station, and set up another weather station on Phu Island. Especially, they put up a stele asserting their sovereignty over Huangsha in June 1938, whose inscription reads, République Française, Empire d'un Nam Archipel de Paracel, 1816, Île de Patel, 1938. In some periods before World War II, exercising sovereignty over Huangsha and Dongsha of Vietnam, France frequently established and modified the mode of administration of these archipelagos. During the 1930s, the French completed their construction of the meteorological station on Huangsha to forecast the weather and the lighthouse to guide ships passing the area in unfavorable weather conditions. Besides garrisoning their military forces on Huangsha and Dongsha, the French government also assigned French and Vietnamese officers to work on Huangsha with their wives and their children. The birth certificate of Mai Kim Quy, born on Huangsha Islands in 1939, is one proof of this. This paper, made in French on Huangsha on 28 June 1940, states her full name as Mai Kim Quy, born to Mr. Mai Xuân Tập, a meteorological officer, and Mrs. Nguyen Thị Thắng at 3 p.m. on 7 December 1939 on the Île Patel, Huangsha Island of the Huangsha. And has the names of two witnesses, Dr. Nguyễn Tăng Chuẩn and Mr. Đỗ Đức Mùi, director of the island radio. Such kinds of papers are important evidence that clearly testifies to the administrative and civil management carried out by the French protectorate government towards Huangsha on behalf of Vietnam. After the heyday of colonialism, once again Asian countries including Vietnam were again trapped up in World War II. During World War II, Japan occupied some islands in Huangsha and Dongsha, but the French government maintained their forces in the main Huangsha Island and the surrounding islands, continued their management over both Huangsha and Dongsha, and many times they issued statements in protest of Japan seizing by force the islands in these two archipelagos. After the end of World War II, the defeated Japan withdrew its troops from Indochina, but maintained its garrison on Huangsha up to 1946, when they withdrew totally. Japanese forces were replaced by a French infantry unit landing on Huangsha from the ship Savognon de Brazza in May 1946. Yet, this unit was there for a few months and then withdrew when the First Indochina War broke out. Following the withdrawal of the French, the Republic of China took advantage of its task assigned by the Allies to disarm the Japanese troops to land its troops on Huangsha in November 1946, and by January 1947, the Chinese nationalist troops had expanded their occupation by taking control of Phu Island. On 13 January 1947, French government officially protested this action of China and quickly dispatched a French garrison to Huangsha Island of the Huangsha Archipelago. On 8 March 1949, French President Vincent Auriol and former Emperor Bảo Đại signed the Élysée Treaty on founding the independent Associated States of Vietnam within the French Union, with Bảo Đại as head of state. The French army in Indochina started, on behalf of the government of Vietnam, to deploy military operations on the territory of Vietnam and on the islands and ocean areas under its sovereignty, including Huangsha.
En ce qui concerne les îles Paracel, il faudrait qu'il y ait, avant que l'on parle de l'époque de la colonisation française, puisqu'il paraît qu'il existe des documents qui remontent jusqu'au XVIIIe siècle. Il faudrait que le Vietnam puisse apporter les preuves selon lesquelles les empereurs d'Annam ont régulièrement administré les îles Paracels avant l'arrivée des Français. Il faut aussi qu'on fouille les archives françaises pour démontrer que les Français ont bien assuré, au nom de l'Annam protégée, puisque c'était cette époque-là, que les Français ont bien assuré l'administration continue de l'empereur d'Annam sur les Paracels. En ce qui concerne les Spratlys, eh bien, lorsque les Français ont conquis les Spratlys en 1930 et 1933, les renouvelés en 1933, ça a été suivi d'une déclaration officielle du gouvernement français, comme quoi la France prenait officiellement possession des îles Spratlys. Les îles Spratlys ont été rattachées administrativement à la Cochinchine, qui n'était pas un protectorat, mais bien une colonie française.
In early September 1951, during the World War II, the Allies held a peace conference with Japan in San Francisco, USA, to discuss the ending of the war in Asia Pacific and the opening up of a post-war relationship with Japan. The conference was attended by delegates from 51 countries, but none from the People's Republic of China and the Republic of China, because the US and the Soviet Union would not agree on which of the two should officially represent China's interests. At the invitation of the US government, the Prime Minister of the Associated States of Vietnam, within the French Union, headed by Bảo Đại, attended the conference. At the plenary session on 5th September 1951, the delegation proposed 13 main amendments to orientate the signing of a real peace treaty with Japan, including those relating to how Japan perceives the sovereignty of the People's Republic of China over Huangsha and the further southwards islands. However, with 46 votes against, 1 withdrawal, 1 abstention, and 3 votes for, the conference rejected this proposal. Facing this event, on the 7th September 1951, addressing the conference, while Prime Minister Trần Văn Hữu, head of the delegation of the State of Vietnam, stated clearly, "We will shortly present here the viewpoints which we request the conference to acknowledge, verify." Regarding the sovereignty over Huangsha and Trường Sa, the Vietnam's delegation asserted in their statement, and also because of the necessity to make use of every opportunity to extinguish the seeds of any future dispute, we affirm the long-standing sovereignty of Vietnam over Huangsha and Trường Sa. This affirmation by the Vietnam delegation did not cause any protests or claims from any of the 51 participant countries in the conference. It can be said that the participation of the Associated States of Vietnam within the French Union in the San Francisco Conference in 1951 and its statement of sovereignty over Huangsha and Trường Sa was of great significance in the series of facts to testify to its early establishment of sovereignty, de jure as well as de facto peaceful possession over Huangsha and Trường Sa.
Một vấn đề nữa mà chúng ta cần phải nhấn mạnh, tháng 4 năm 1952, với cái hội nghị hòa bình giữa Trung Hoa Dân Quốc, tức là Đài Loan với Nhật Bản, thì Trung Hoa Dân Quốc vẫn thừa nhận một cái điều khoản trong hiệp định này là Nhật khước từ chủ quyền của mình trên hai quần đảo Hoàng Sa, Trường Sa và không hề nêu là giao cho Trung Quốc. Thì tất cả những dữ liệu đó đã cho thấy rằng Hoàng Sa, Trường Sa là của Việt Nam đã được quốc tế thừa nhận trong một cái hội nghị rất là quan trọng, và quan trọng kể cả đối với những quốc gia không tham dự hội nghị.
When the Geneva Agreement on Vietnam was signed, and enforced in July 1954, Vietnam became temporarily divided at the 17th parallel. Located south to this parallel, Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa were obviously under the jurisdiction of the government of the State of Vietnam, later the Republic of Vietnam, until 30th April 1975, in accordance with certain provisions of the agreement. In April 1956, the Republic of Vietnam took over the group of prison islands in the west of Hoàng Sa and those islands in Trường Sa. On 8th June 1956, Vũ Văn Mẫu, Foreign Minister of the Republic of Vietnam, made a statement reaffirming Vietnam's sovereignty over Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa. During that time, Vietnam was split due to the failure of the enforcement of the Geneva Agreement. Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa were inevitably subject to the administration by the Republic of Vietnam. Since taking over Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa, the Republic of Vietnam government had been implementing its sovereignty over them by garrisoning soldiers there, as well as by continuously dispatching these units and individuals as replacements to defend Hoàng Sa. In 1961, Hoàng Sa was merged into the province of Quảng Nam and named Định Hải Commune under Hòa Vang district. On 27 April 1965, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Vietnam issued an ordinance number 81 NG on delimiting 3 nautical miles of the territorial waters of the Republic of Vietnam for establishing their defense area where the circulation of any vessels detrimental to peace and order or security of Vietnam would be totally prohibited. On 21st October 1969, the government of the Republic of Vietnam decided on merging Định Hải Commune, Hòa Vang District, Quảng Nam Province, into Hòa Long Commune of the same district, under Decree numbered 709 BNV HC 26. From then on, the administration of Hoàng Sa was entrusted to the grassroots level administrative unit in the mainland. In January 1973, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Vietnam decided to merge Hoàng Sa, Trường Sa, and Thổ Chu Island into an inland administrative unit. We can see that the government of the Republic of Vietnam had been exercising regularly and continued their sovereignty over Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa through acts of management, operation, and merger of them nearly 20 years until 1974, when China used force to seize Hoàng Sa. In early 1974, the Vietnam War became increasingly fiercer. Taking advantage of the situation, on 15 January 1974, China began to land their troops on the islands west of Hoàng Sa, which was under the management of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. On 19 and 20th January 1974, China launched attacks on the western islands of the Hoàng Sa and landed troops there to occupy. The Army of the Republic of Vietnam fought back fiercely but fell. Thus, and China took over the entire Hoàng Sa. As soon as the naval battle on Hoàng Sa ended on 14 February 1974, and the Republic of Vietnam proclaimed its sovereignty over Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa again, and asserted that it would continue to fight to re-establish and protect its sovereignty over these archipelagos. At the same time, the representatives of the Republic of Vietnam at the United Nations reaffirmed Vietnam's stance on the sovereignty over Hoàng Sa and requested the UN Security Council to consider this matter. The National Front for the Liberation of South Vietnam also made a statement of the 3-point stance on the settlement of the territorial dispute over Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa. The naval battle in Hoàng Sa took place 40 years ago. Yet, it eloquently proves that, however strong the intruder may be, once their territory sovereignty is violated, the Vietnamese people will definitely fight back against him, even if their blood may be shed. Over time, the country may go through ups and downs. All the Vietnamese people, wherever they are on earth, remain sure that Hoàng Sa and Trường Sa will always belong to us, because justice and reason are on our side. This is also the main content of episode 5 of the documentary film, Vietnamese Seas and Islands, Their Long Established Roots.